Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're into real, raw stories that hit where it hurts, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. I read them all. Now, let's get into it. I rang my unfaithful wife's lover while they were together. A storm of rage and cold clarity surged through me. My voice came out measured, emotionless. Let her know I'm filing for divorce. On the other end, all I heard was their breathing, thick with tension, silence stretching like they didn't know what to do with my words. But I was beyond decisions. This was done. She reached out. Called. Messaged. He tried spinning it, offering weak justifications for the inexcusable. But what could they possibly say that would erase the fact that in that moment, whatever love we had simply died? The late arrivals, the forced smiles, the half-hearted excuses, all the pieces now clicked into place. I had sensed this coming, just never imagined it would arrive with such cold finality. Such brutal clarity. The gathering was at a mutual acquaintance's home. She had no idea I planned to show up, let alone that it would be our final encounter as a married couple. I walked in, already resolved. The thumping bass, the laughter, the swirling lights, all of it felt like mockery against the emptiness consuming me. I moved through the crowd, indifferent to the chatter and the curious glances. I had one goal. Just reach her. Or both of them. I spotted them before they noticed me. There they were, together, laughing, carefree. Completely unaware of what was coming. It ate at me. Her. The woman I had pledged a lifetime to. And him, irrelevant, oblivious, a side character in the storm I'd been quietly weathering. With each step, time seemed to crawl. I saw them in slow motion, every movement, every grin, and what infuriated me was the lack of guilt. Not even a shadow of shame on her face. As if betrayal was a natural choice, free from consequence. But consequences had arrived. Tell her I'm divorcing her. The words cut through the noise, calm and sharp. She froze. His laugh died mid-breath, erased like it was never there. Her eyes widened, disbelief turning into panic. What are you doing here? She stammered, color draining from her face. I stood still, watching as her world tilted. His hand was still lightly on her arm, a simple touch that now screamed guilt. She shifted, as if trying to distance herself, but he lingered, stunned, unsure what to do. Wait, let me explain. She rushed, her voice trembling, spilling sentences that meant nothing. But there was nothing left to explain. No words could unbreak what was already shattered. What do you do when the foundation of your world splits beneath you? When the person who knew your heart best becomes the one who crushes it? I didn't want to yell. I didn't want tears. I just wanted her to truly grasp what she'd destroyed. I wanted her to feel the same void now ripping through me. She kept talking, frantic, incoherent. I stopped listening. I only watched. The fear in her eyes. The way she scrambled to make sense of the senseless. His helpless glance at her, like he expected her to handle it, to fix the scene. Let me explain. She pleaded again, as if clinging to the idea there was still a chance. I nodded once, slow and deliberate. There's nothing left to explain. My voice came quiet, but it landed like a blade. I know everything. She reached out, eyes wet, but the tears meant nothing now. They looked as fake as the words spilling from her lips. Please, she begged. I made a mistake. I can fix this. We can fix this. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, it looked like the weight of reality hit her. But it was far too late. I'd already lost too many sleepless nights wondering if I wasn't enough, questioning myself, picking apart moments I thought were real. Every glance back, every small interaction had haunted me, made me question where I might have gone wrong. But standing there in the ruin she created, I understood at last, it was never about me. And that realization, as painful as it was, set me free. She kept speaking, frantically throwing out phrases she didn't even believe herself. Her words weren't about truth. They were desperate attempts to rewrite what had already been carved in stone. But what could she possibly say now? What could I possibly hear that would change the fact that love, real love, had already bled out between us? Nothing. My decision had solidified, and it was the only truth that still mattered. As her voice cracked and tumbled in panic, I saw through it all. None of it was for me. It was about her fear, her loss. But my heart? It was empty. I didn't feel sorrow, rage, not even sadness anymore. The silence inside me had swallowed everything. She looked at me, pleading, hoping for some reaction. But the man she once knew was gone. The one who would have moved mountains for her, who forgave without question, who fought to hold it all together, that man had disappeared. In his place stood someone who wanted only one thing, to be unshackled. When you reach that hollow place where nothing stirs you, where nothing hurts anymore, that's when you truly let go. I had arrived there. That moment when every word feels meaningless and silence becomes your final answer. I turned and left. Left the music, the chatter, her trembling voice behind me. She stayed there, surrounded by a fantasy that had just collapsed. And I walked away. Free. But what she didn't realize, what hadn't yet dawned on her, is that the divorce wouldn't be the full measure of what was coming. There was more. Much more. Something she hadn't seen. Something waiting just around the corner that would rip apart the illusion she'd clung to. Because sometimes, what you fear most isn't the end of love, it's the unraveling of everything you built your life on. Welcome to the channel. Around here, we don't glorify betrayal. Every story you hear is fictional, yes, but rooted in the harsh, unforgiving truth that infidelity destroys everything it touches. Families, futures, trust. Get ready, because this story isn't just intense, it's a raw descent into the fallout of deceit. Let's dive in. The wall clock read 7 p.m., but time dragged like molasses. John sat motionless on the couch, fingers wrapped around a glass of whiskey, his mind adrift. The house that once felt alive with warmth and connection now seemed like a set emptied after a final act. Silence pressed in like a fog. The TV was playing something, he wasn't sure what, the sound low and distant. His thoughts were buried under years of memories that had started to crumble like brittle leaves in winter. Melissa, his wife, had left early that morning, like she'd done every morning lately. The distance between them had stopped being subtle. The warm greetings, quick kisses, little end-of-day talks, all of it had become echoes of a life they used to share. He remembered when she used to wait by the door after a long day, the way her presence pulled him out of whatever exhaustion he carried home. That comfort was gone now. She had become a stranger, someone cold, unreachable. Yet he remembered when it had all started. She was captivating. The kind of beauty that didn't need to try, energy that swept through rooms, lighting up even the dullest spaces. When he took her dancing, her laughter would ring out over the music, unforgettable. His friends had always joked he hit the jackpot. He believed them. Back then, having her by his side felt like winning the life lottery. Their marriage, in the beginning, was everything he dreamed of. Together, they carved out a life. Faced challenges head on. Melissa was more than a wife, she was his teammate in every sense. They talked of kids, road trips, growing old with matching rocking chairs. And for a long while, he believed they were well on their way. But time has a way of whispering warnings before it screams. The cracks had started small. Barely there. A few late nights, a few new excuses, a shift in her energy that John chalked up to career stress. Melissa had taken on a new role, a demanding one, and he wanted to believe that was all it was. He himself wasn't home much either, chasing business deals, pouring his focus into expansion. They'd always prided themselves on being a team that could take anything. But something felt off. And it wasn't just her hours or her silence. It was the way she carried herself, like she was holding something inside, carefully out of reach. The sparkle that once danced in her eyes when she spoke of her day was gone. She was quieter now, colder, offering only the bare minimum. John would reach out, ask questions, try to pull her into conversation. And every time, he hit a wall. The effortless flow between them had vanished, replaced with short responses and long silences. Each word felt strained, like they were negotiating a truce neither believed in. That night, sitting with his whiskey, John felt a knot tighten deep in his chest. He tried telling himself it was just a phase. That all marriages went through quiet spells, dry spells, dips in rhythm. But this didn't feel like a dip. This felt like a fracture. And worst of all was the sensation of being powerless to fix it. Outside, he heard the familiar crunch of tires on gravel. She was home. He looked toward the door, waiting for the soft rattle of her keys. She entered briskly, coat coming off in one motion, her bag tossed to the side like she was already somewhere else. Their eyes met, briefly, automatically. "Hey," he offered. "How was your day?" "Exhausting," she muttered, already headed to the kitchen, not even meeting his gaze. That had become their rhythm, brief, dull exchanges. Emotionless check-ins. And it hit him just how far she drifted. He wondered if she noticed the growing gap. Or worse, if she just didn't care. He didn't press. Not tonight. They ate dinner as they had so many nights before, in silence. The sound of forks tapping against ceramic, the occasional clink of a glass. Words that once came so freely were now replaced by the dull ambience of disconnection. He studied her face, her posture, her eyes, looking for traces of the woman he married. She was there. Physically. But her spirit felt far away, like she was already living another life. After dinner, she excused herself quietly, disappearing into the bedroom without a glance back. John stayed behind, staring into the empty space she left behind. How long could this go on? How long could he pretend they were still in sync when every moment proved otherwise? He loved her. God, he did. But lately, that love felt like a ship drifting further from shore. And he started asking himself if maybe he was the one who let go first. Was it all the late nights at the office? The weekends working? Had he missed the signs? His thoughts spiraled, no answers, just guilt and questions. On the other side of the house, Melissa stood before her mirror, frozen in her own storm. The face staring back at her looked tired, uncertain. She knew John was trying. He always had. She could see the quiet effort in his eyes, the unspoken hope every time he reached out. But something between them had shifted, become foreign. And she couldn't bring herself to bridge it. She wasn't sure if she had changed, or if the world around her had. Once she had loved John with a fire that felt unshakable. And in some small, flickering way, she still did. But the fire had changed. Muted. She wasn't the same woman who'd lit up dance floors and laughed through crowded bars. Life had crept in, responsibilities, routines, pressure. Work consumed her. And slowly, without noticing, she'd become someone else entirely. Lying beside him each night, she often felt an invisible chasm stretch between them, a silence too heavy for words to mend. That quiet loneliness gnawed at her, leaving her questioning the very choices that had once seemed certain. Melissa knew deep down that John deserved more, someone fully present, someone who didn't look for meaning outside their marriage, but she also knew, with increasing certainty, that she could no longer be that person. As silence settled over the house, each of them retreated further into themselves, tangled in emotions they didn't have the language to unpack. Neither of them knew it, but the clock on their marriage was ticking. What was coming would tear the veil away completely, but for now, the only thing they truly shared was the same aching uncertainty. In that void, something dark and irreversible began to stir, something neither of them was prepared to confront. The next day broke with no fanfare. Another morning, another routine, but John felt at the moment he opened his eyes, something inside him had shifted. Melissa had already left, her goodbye reduced to a hollow murmur fading down the hallway. That pattern had become their norm, empty mornings, cold evenings, polite detachment. But John couldn't go on like this. He was tired. Tired of pretending the silence wasn't screaming. Tired of dissecting the past, hunting for clues. He needed to know. He needed to understand what he was really living with. The silence wasn't passive anymore. It was toxic. Heavy. Telling. This wasn't just a lull. It wasn't burnout. It was something else entirely, and he could feel it pressing in around him. At the office, he tried to focus, diving into spreadsheets and conference calls, but every buzz from his phone had him glancing down, heart skipping, hoping. Maybe it was her. Maybe she'd finally noticed the distance. Maybe she wanted to talk. But every time, it was just another email, another notification, another reminder that Melissa had nothing to say to him. The ache in his chest deepened. He sat staring at his screen, motionless, as the world around him blurred. Then he remembered the voicemail. The one he'd ignored for days. The one he wasn't ready for. A call from the private investigator he had hired in a moment of suspicion and desperation. The message had been sitting there, untouched, burning a hole in his conscience. He reached for the phone. It felt heavier than usual. Like it already knew what he was about to hear. His thumb hovered over the screen. One press, and everything could change. But he pressed play. The detective's voice was steady, professional, and merciless. "Sir, I have the information you asked for. I suggest you look at the images I've sent. Your wife has been meeting a man during hours when she's reportedly at work. The locations, the frequency, the behavior, there's little doubt about the nature of their connection." The words landed like a steel-toed boot to the gut. John froze. His mind screamed, but his body went still. He had expected something. Anything. But not this. Not proof. Not images. Not evidence. His hands trembled as he opened the message. Photos filled the screen, one after the other. Melissa, smiling. Melissa, leaning close to a man John had never seen before. Melissa, touching his arm, laughing the way she hadn't laughed with John in months. He studied the details, the restaurant, the angles, the lighting. There was no misunderstanding here. No, maybe. She was unfaithful. She was living another life while he'd been trying to save what was already gone. The ground beneath him cracked open. Not just betrayal, but the quiet humiliation of knowing how long she had been gone while he had still believed they could recover. Rage surged, but beneath it was something colder, grief for a life that was already dead. He walked out of the office without a word, past his colleagues' curious glances, past the humming noise of printers and conversations that suddenly felt irrelevant. His head was spinning with thoughts that crashed into each other, images of Melissa laughing, moments they had shared, promises made on rainy nights or in the warmth of old anniversaries. Now those memories played like old footage from a movie he no longer recognized, all beauty stripped away, leaving behind only the bitter aftertaste of betrayal. What did that man have that he didn't? What made her cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed? He had given so much of himself to this marriage, time, care, energy. And yet here he was, sitting alone in their kitchen, while the ticking of the wall clock felt like a countdown to something final. The anger had boiled over on the way home, but now it had settled into something colder, heavier. He needed to confront her. He needed to see her face, to watch her eyes when the lies collapsed. But part of him still hesitated, torn between pain and the echo of what once was. Maybe he should wait for her to speak first. Maybe he should let her dig her own grave with the words she would try to spin. That evening, when she didn't come home on time, the pieces fell together like a cruel puzzle. He already knew where she was, he had seen the photos, traced the pattern. She was with him again, unaware that the curtain had been pulled back. John didn't even realize his hand had moved until the phone was already ringing. One ring, two, and then the voice picked up. A man's voice. Caught off guard. "Hello?" John let the silence stretch just enough to slice through the air, then delivered the only sentence that mattered now. "Tell her I'm filing for divorce." A pause. The kind of pause that tastes like fear. He could imagine Melissa staring at the phone, frozen, lips parted but saying nothing. Good. There was no going back now. John ended the call without waiting for a response. There was nothing they could say that would erase the truth. He didn't want explanations. Not anymore. They'd be lies wrapped in shame. And though the pain clenched his chest like a vice, something else began to rise, something cleaner. Relief. The fog was gone. The deceit dragged into the light. He was no longer trapped in the cycle of doubt, and self-blame. It was over. But what Melissa didn't know, what neither of them had spoken aloud, was that this wasn't just about the end of a marriage. John had been preparing something else. A final move. A truth bomb that would shatter more than just their vows. He sat still on the couch, the phone in his lap, the room hushed like the moment before a storm. He knew she would be home soon. He knew the panic would drive her to try and salvage whatever she could. But she was about to learn that some damage can't be patched. The door creaked open. He didn't move. Her steps were fast, uneven. She entered like a ghost, face pale, lips trembling. "John," she whispered, voice breaking. "Please, let me explain." He didn't say a word. Just stared. Melissa stepped forward, hands clasped, eyes searching his face for something, anything, that still resembled forgiveness. "I made a mistake," she stammered. "I didn't know how to fix us. I felt like we were falling apart and I was scared." The words tumbled, messy and chaotic. But he was already gone, emotionally. He heard her voice, but it was background noise now, like static on a dead channel. She cried, but the tears didn't move him. He had cried alone for weeks while she laughed with someone else. Now it was her turn to drown in the silence. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and now the consequences had arrived at her doorstep, sharp-edged and merciless. John's voice, when it finally broke the silence, carried the weight of everything she had tried to ignore. "This isn't about us, Melissa." His tone was flat, stripped of emotion, cold as steel. "This is about you. Your choices." She flinched at his words, the impact immediate and visible. Her face contorted, mouth opening as if to respond, but nothing came out. "I know I hurt you," she said at last, breathless, voice cracking. "But I love you. I still do." The desperation in her voice echoed off the walls. "We can fix this, John. We can fix everything." His response was swift, like a door slamming shut. "Fix what?" He rose from the couch, voice finally cracking with the fury he had tried so hard to contain. "You didn't trip and fall into someone's bed, Melissa. You made a decision. You made it repeatedly. While I sat here, fighting for us, you were somewhere else, destroying it." Her scream came out of nowhere, raw and panicked. "No! It wasn't like that. I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing." She moved closer, reaching for him, but John stepped back. "I made a mistake," she continued, the tears now pouring down. "But that doesn't mean I don't love you." He stared at her, his jaw tight, chest heaving with restrained breath. And in that moment, he understood what he had to do. He saw how she still believed this was a conversation, still believed this was salvageable. She had no idea how far this had already gone. No idea what she was really about to lose. "Do you honestly think love erases everything?" he asked, quieter now, but no less sharp. "You think we can just pretend this never happened and keep going like it's some bad dream?" Her face twisted into a grimace of regret, trembling hands wiping at the tears. She tried again. "Please, John. Please just let me know," he said. "You've already said enough." He walked forward slowly, deliberately, the room shrinking around them. The air was dense with tension, a storm waiting to break. Without a word, John reached into his pocket and tossed his phone onto the table. Melissa stared at it, blinking. "What is that?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Evidence," he said simply. "Everything. Photos. Locations. Conversations. You were never careful. You thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed, Melissa. I just wanted to be sure." Her body jerked like she'd been hit. Her knees wavered, and she dropped onto the edge of the couch, her breath catching in her throat. "John, please, I save it," he snapped, the words like glass underfoot. "You were somewhere else every time you looked me in the eye. You kissed me with lies on your lips. Don't tell me you were confused. Don't insult me with that." She sobbed harder now, burying her face in her hands, but John didn't flinch. There was no comfort in him left to offer. Not for her. Not now. And then he said it, the thing that shifted the room from confrontation to collapse. But that's not all. His voice was calm again. Too calm. This isn't just divorce. You see, while you were busy running around behind my back, I was making plans too. She lifted her head, face blotchy, lips trembling, confusion overtaking panic. What do you mean? John turned to the table, picked up a plain white envelope, and spilled its contents onto the wood. Paperwork slid out, official, cold, final. I've moved everything, he said. Every dollar. All the accounts. The house is already in my name. You won't get a cent. Melissa's mouth dropped open. For a few seconds, no sound came out. Then, John, no. No, you can't do this. You can't leave me with nothing. Her voice cracked from disbelief to dread in a single breath. You can't do this to me. He folded his arms across his chest and watched as the woman who had dismantled their life collapsed in front of him. I can't, he said, his voice like frost. And I did. Actions have consequences, Melissa. You ended our marriage the moment you gave yourself to someone else. Now you get to live with that decision. John stood there, motionless, watching the wreckage of what once was his life unfold before him, not with rage now, not even bitterness, but with the quiet detachment of someone who had already buried what mattered. Melissa's voice, once familiar and comforting, now trembled through the air like the final echoes of something long gone. Her body was curled near the edge of the coffee table, tears streaming down her cheeks, pleading with words that should have come months earlier. I can't be without you, not like this, she whispered again, as if repeating it could alter reality. But John had already gone somewhere she couldn't follow. Somewhere past forgiveness, past hope, past the weight of shared memories and broken promises. You already have been, he finally said, his voice low, almost flat. You've been without me for a long time. You just didn't notice. Or maybe you didn't care. That landed like a blow. Melissa sobbed harder, hands gripping the edge of the sofa like it could somehow anchor her to the life slipping through her fingers. But I still love you, she choked. Doesn't that count for anything? John's eyes met hers, steady and final. Love isn't something you hide in someone else's bed and then dig up when it's convenient. You don't get to bury it in lies and betrayal and then expect it to come back clean. He turned away, taking a few slow steps toward the hallway. Please, Melissa whimpered. Don't walk away from me. He paused. For a moment, he let silence stretch between them again, heavier now, filled with finality. I'm not walking away, he said without turning back. I already did. The day I stopped being your priority. The day you decided I wasn't enough. Then he disappeared into the bedroom and returned minutes later with a packed overnight bag. Without a glance back, he walked past her, past the pain, the tears, the ruins, and opened the front door. Melissa didn't try to stop him this time. Her cries turned to a silent weeping, a collapse of everything she once thought was safe and permanent. The night air hit his face as he stepped outside. It was cool, fresh, unburdened. For the first time in what felt like years, John inhaled deeply, and felt his lungs truly expand. No chains. No confusion. No lies. Behind him was the echo of a shattered marriage. Ahead of him, the unknown. But at least it was his. If that story shook something in you, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and make sure you're subscribed. More stories like this are coming your way. Until next time, stay sharp, stay honest.